Welcome to this module entitled Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risk, the GAP Audit Process. This module is part of a series to assist you in creating a food safety program and preparing you for a GAP audit. These videos are based off of a series of 7 fact sheets available through Virginia Cooperative Extension. Today we will be discussing the 7th step of developing a food safety program, in which we will provide an overview of the GAP audit process. As we discussed in Module 1, where we looked at accessing markets, we saw that there is not a one-size-fits-all for different markets and their food safety requirements. We also saw that it is critical to communicate with your market to find out their specific food safety requirements and what you, as a grower, need to do to satisfy those requirements. If a food safety audit is needed, asking what specific audits are acceptable is vital. Remember that while all produce food safety audits address hazards, identify routes of contamination, implement best practices, and document activities, there are different levels of complexity and stringency between audits. Those differences are driven by market pressures and trends in the produce industry. For some markets where audit requirements are less rigorous, obtaining a basic level certification like the U.S. Department of Agriculture GAP audit is an acceptable option. In contrast, in markets that have stiffer requirements, like wholesale or institutional markets, audits like the USDA Harmonized GAP or HGAP and HGAP Plus can suffice. Further, some commodities like leafy greens or tomatoes are seen as higher risk crops and have specific food safety programs to address those needs. Examples include the California Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement or Florida's Tomato GAPS program. In other cases, especially for large domestic or export markets, some buyers require complex third-party food safety certification schemes, such as Primus, Safe Quality Food or SQF program, or Global GAP. Ultimately, as already stated, it is vital to talk with your buyers so you know what audits will satisfy their food safety requirements. Regardless of the type of audit you pursue, there are several steps entailed with preparing for a GAP audit. We will look at each step in subsequent slides. The first step for preparing for your audit is to assess the risk, as we have already learned. Please take the time to review those modules and fact sheets since there is a lot of important information. If you have a hydroponic greenhouse system or operation, we encourage you to explore our VCE fact sheet entitled Hydroponic Production of Edible Crops, Food Safety Considerations. The next main step is to prepare your food safety plan or manual. Virginia Cooperative Extension has created manual templates for the USDA GAP, HGAP, and HGAP Plus audits. The templates include the core elements needed for a food safety plan. We will cover the manual components and how to work through the manual templates in the next module, Module 9. Now that your written food safety plan or manual is developed, it is important that you implement your plan on your farm and ensure that food safety practices are being performed. This means making any on-the-ground changes to infrastructure and product flow, as well as incorporating specific practices into the daily activities. It also means completing records at the appropriate times, following all cleaning and sanitizing procedures at their scheduled intervals, conducting water sampling, and recording the results, as well as documenting any corrective actions that need to be taken. While having a well-completed plan of action is great, it is the follow-through that makes your food safety plan successful in mitigating risk. Always do what you say you will do and not what you wish you would do. To make sure you have addressed all the audit questions and have everything in place prior to your audit, it is helpful to conduct a pre-audit walkthrough or mock audit with your VCE extension agent. The checklist at the end of the Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risk, Preparing for GAP Certification fact sheet has been developed to help you with your walkthrough and follows the Harmonized GAP and HGAP Plus audit formats. Walk through your fields or greenhouses and ensure the questions are addressed in all production, packing, and post-harvest handling areas. Make sure your logs and other records are easily accessible and filled out. Are workers following the food safety protocols they learned in training? Are your animal mitigation measures working? Do you notice any issues with your water system? Was your water of appropriate microbial quality after testing? And if not, are your water treatment measures successful? How clean is your packing shed or packing facility? Have you conducted a mock recall to test the effectiveness of your traceability program? Do you have all required documentation needed to support your activities? Is signage posted where needed? Overall, is the farm ready for an inspection? If there are any last-minute items to address, do so before the scheduled audit date. Concurrent with working on your food safety plan manual and on-farm implementation, you will need to submit the USDA SC-430 vendor form to USDA. Once your manual is complete, all standard operating procedures are written and being followed, and applicable records are kept, you should request an official audit. In Virginia, USDA audits are administered through the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Marketing. VDAX inspectors act on behalf of the USDA to perform the official audit as an independent third party. Work with your auditor to schedule your audit date and time. You can call them and also send them Form SC-237A, which is USDA's Agricultural Marketing Services Request for Audit Services form. If possible, check with your VCE agent or other nearby farms to see if you can coordinate multiple farm audits during the same trip. This can help reduce the audit cost, since audit costs include travel as well as the audit inspection time and office time. After the initial farm audit inspection occurs, an unannounced visit is possible within the remainder of the growing season. If the auditor left you with any areas that required corrective actions, it is important that you address these areas so that you are ready for any follow-up visits. Previous manuals and records must be retained for 3 years. It may be helpful to store previous records in separate binders and label them by the audit year. Remember that your plan of action manual is what we call a living document and should be updated as you make any changes during the growing season and from year to year. Be sure that any changes are appropriately documented, and for any subsequent audit, always have the previous year's audit manual on hand in case the inspector wants to see that any changes or corrective actions were documented. You have now completed this module. There are some important steps you should complete before moving on to the next module. You will want to make sure you review the GAP Audit Preparation Fact Sheet found on the course site or on the Virginia Cooperative Extension website. There you will find more in-depth information on the topics we covered in this module, along with supporting resources and documents. Reviewing the fact sheet will also prepare you for the final module in this series, Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risk, GAP Manual Preparation.